meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Oh yeah, you're seeing that? Hang on.
Says that at the top.
All right. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're seeing that? Hang on.
Oh boy. Now I'm getting two.
You can just turn the audio off on YouTube so you don't get the latency, right?
Yeah, but I'm hearing it. I heard it through my computer, so I just paused it. So yeah, dude, I think we're rocking, bro. I think. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah. Yeah, we're doing it.
It says on my screen, live on YouTube.
All right, so anybody who's watching this, bear with us, testing some new technology. Looks like we got a few people on, trying to watch both. I'm turning it down. All right, dude. Is that right? 22 people already? Dang, dude. All right, we got some people.
Wow.
And they're saying they can hear us. So yeah, this is this is going to be interesting. We're trying to test this out. So
the dream come true.
Dream come true. I've said I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So the reason it was very last minute and there was no warning was so we could just see if it worked, and it's working. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those who don't know, the man, the myth, the legend, Rob Drew has joined us.
There.
Rob, how's it going?
Yes, it's going pretty well.
How's it going? Yes. Yes. So you want to give us just a little intro, say hi. I think most people here know who you are. And if they don't, shame on them. So I think we should just use this. This is going to be brief for anybody who's watching, but let's just give a little intro, dude. Go ahead and talk. The floor is yours. Tell the world.
Okay. I am Rich. I am Rich's older brother, Rob, and 7 years older than Rich, if he hasn't mentioned that before. I haven't had a strong presence on his YouTube channel because I have a business located just outside Phoenix, Arizona. It's an auto body shop. We've been incredibly busy, so I've been, trying to ride the bike as much as I can and work. But I'm excited for the weather to turn here in Phoenix and start doing some of the Ride Series clinics and producing more content. Over the summer, I've been stocking up on equipment and devices so that I can do more content creation. And I'm excited to get together with Rich to produce some stuff that hopefully will add a little bit of extra entertainment to his channel.
That's good. I like that. So give everybody some background on you as a rider on two wheels.
Okay. So when I was very young, I always wanted to ride motorcycles. My parents would never get me a motorcycle. So I started riding bicycles as a surrogate. But as soon as I was old enough, which was basically high school, I started riding motorcycles, racing motorcycles. Became a professional motocross racer for about 10 years and really had an exciting and enjoyable career doing that. But I was injured and that brought my career to an end. So I focused on my business. And when I turned 40, I was about 215 pounds, had some nagging injuries from the motocross career. So exercise was a challenge. And somebody suggested that I get on a mountain bike. So I did that. And it's been a phenomenal ride ever since. So that was when I was 40. As I said, I'm just about to turn 50. So the last 10 years has been just a phenomenal experience filled with some of the most amazing people and adventures that I ever could have even thought I would get to go on. So the future looks bright. on the bike, even at this age. And so I'm thrilled that as a 50-year-old man, I can still be this active and have this kind of fun. And my hope is that I can share my adventures with more people my age and inspire them to come to the realization that it's not too late.
Yeah.
Like the present, get out there on the bike.
Heck yeah, dude. And the senior genre is really building. So you could speak to them.
That's correct.
Yeah, the
Like,
blue
when
hairs.
get a little more gray like yours.
The gray, yeah. Yeah.
It's really happening.
A little bit gray. Yeah, definitely. So where you're at, let everybody know where you're at and kind of what kind of riding you normally do. I think a lot of people are used to seeing me in Bentonville on the very manicured trails that we have. You don't have much of that back where you are.
So one of the most prime riding spots here in Phoenix is South Mountain Park, which is located like 2 miles from the international airport here in Phoenix. And from the ground level, from the highway driving through Phoenix, it really doesn't look like much. But once you get up on top of the mountain, it's like you've left the country and gone to Afghanistan. It's really fantastic riding. And so once I started seriously riding the bike, I found myself driving over here to ride most days. And I convinced my wife to move right over here. So now we live right on the preserve. My house backs to the main trailhead where everybody comes in. I can stand on my back patio and see all my friends driving in to ride. Yeah. So it's fantastic. From my garage to the trailhead is 45 seconds.
Yep.
So it's kind of a dream for me, and I love it. And the terrain is what I would describe as ancient trails. We've got about 1,000 feet of elevation here. Trails that drop north and south from the ridge, which runs east and west. And there is such a tremendous mix of terrain. Nothing like there is in Bentonville, but all rugged, loose, gnarly, tons of technical climbing. And so that's kind of the type of riding that I favor and that I think I do well at. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's definitely very different. And I've said that many times that going there to ride, it's very eye-opening for me because it makes me focus a bit more on technique. Here, you can apply a lot of power and get lucky. There, it seems like you have to be really on point with technique. And if you can stack power on top of that, it's even more fun. And it's funny how different it is. People don't understand that. Like there's a lot of people here that this is all they know. This is mountain biking for them. Yeah. It's a giant RC car track, jumps everywhere. And that's not really how it is in a lot of places. It's very different, but it's also exciting to ride more places. Like I can't wait to get out there the end of October, heading out for a Ride Series clinic. So it'll be fun to get back South Mountain, hit some rocky, technical uphill climbs and some of the gnarliest downhills that I have ever seen. So one of those, one of those,
trail, that old man
I was going to say one of those, I think it's named
so.
after you. It's called Old Man. And, you know,
that's a gnarly 5 minutes.
It's a very gnarly 5 minutes. And, you know, you sent me a text the other day about something you got on your ride. And it was funny because we talked about Strava and, you know, I just keep coming back to you, Rob. My 8 pages of KOMs, they don't make me who I am. They don't define me.
You know, you can't see those anymore.
What's that?
But you can't see those anymore. They're not there anymore.
They aren't?
You can't see them anymore. No.
I didn't know that.
No, like you don't have a trophy case anymore. They don't do that anymore.
Oh, that's funny. Well, that's okay. Yeah. I don't care. Either way.
If you go to all the segments, you can see it.
Nice.
But
well,
yeah, they eliminated that. So.
That's funny. Well, it happens. I mean, it's one of those things.
Too many people got broken off. Too many people got broken off trying to get them.
Yeah, I could see that. So you were pretty excited because you got a KOM on Old Man, which, as you said, is a gnarly 5-minute trail.
Yeah. So many years back, maybe it wasn't that long ago. Maybe it was 2018 was the last time I got it. And I knew I never really got a clean run on it because there's some tricky catwalks that most times you can't even make it. You've got to get off and kind of run. And so I went back up there I wasn't even going to go, but somebody else I knew said they were going to go ride it. So I went up and hit it again. And I got a super clean run and got through that catwalk. And my time for the whole run didn't show up, but for the gnarliest part of it, I got the KOM. And so I went back the next day and did it again, matched the KOM for the full, I think it was like 5 minutes and 20 something seconds. And then I went back the next day again and put another 10 seconds into it. And it was good.
So
and
what would you,
I still think there's meat on the bone up there.
that's funny.
There's room to shave it some more. I think you could probably get under 5 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. Just to add some context for anybody watching, I'll never try that. Like I have zero desire to ever do that because there's a lot at stake. Like if you crash, it's going to hurt. And there's a few other ones that are like that. Corona de Loma is the same way. You know, it's half, it's a little more than half, but later. Yeah, it's just, it's gnarly. And when I'm out there in October, we'll do some video and we'll try to capture it as much as we can, but it's
now that I have the Skydio, I'm excited. To get you out here because we'll be able to get some amazing perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
The GoPro just doesn't do justice for how, like, the scale of the obstacles in comparison to the bike, but the drone is going to be able to show. And then when we intercut, first person with the drone, I think it's going to look, it's going to look a lot more revealing to people just how aggressive the trail is.
Yeah. I'm excited to try it because it's just, it's crazy. There's a lot on there. So it looks like there's like 41 people watching. So anybody who's watching, hey, I'm trying to look down at my phone to see who's on and who's saying anything, and then look up here. So we're trying to get best practices figured out here. So I just wanted to do this.
I'm trying to look at you.
Yeah.
But Rich is down here, so it's a little tricky.
Yeah, it's very tricky, but I think we'll get it figured out. I think most people are very understanding. I think they just want to listen. They want to hear your knowledge. So let's go.
I'm old and it's
yeah, let's talk about your relationship with Pivot. For anybody who doesn't know, you are a Pivot factory rider. This is your third year. Give some insight on fourth year. Sorry, what that was like getting into that role. If you ever saw it ever happening.
In 2017, my first year, obviously Pivot's right here. My house is about 2 miles from Pivot HQ. So all the years that I've been riding, I would always see a bunch of friends who I know who work at Pivot. Chris Cook, the owner of Pivot, I would see everybody on the trail on a regular basis. And I just never had an opportunity to ride their bikes or engage with them to ride for them. And at the end of 2016, you and I were both riding Giant. The Giant deal was unique because it went through a local sales rep and kind of piggybacked his marketing budget. And my guy who worked for Giant got let go. And so my deal ended, and I made an attempt to kind of go up the chain, and their system didn't function that way. So that was a window where I could engage with Pivot, and several of my friends who worked there were asking me, why don't you ride for Pivot? Why don't you ride for Pivot? So I reached out, and they were in the midst of some changes there in relation to the athlete program, and I was able to get a meeting quickly with Chris, the owner. It went fantastic, and sort of the rest is history. It's been a great relationship. It's been fantastic to be able to be involved in the development process of the bikes, and to have access to the facility. I can just roll in there, and it's high fives all around, and everybody knows me. It's like Cheers, everybody knows your name. It's cool.
Right, Norm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's been great, and And so it's been a fun ride. There are tough aspects of it, obviously, as you know now. And, with what you're doing, testing bikes, we've always had discussions every year about, if you didn't have your deal with X company, you could put
Mhm.
50 bikes on a dartboard, throw a dart at it, and that's the bike you buy, and you'd likely be happy with it. So there's just so much out there that 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 I don't know about, that I'm unaware of. So it's been cool to watch you this year uh, vet out a lot of those things and test those things and hear your feedback. It's been really neat.
So you talked about the development process, and that's something that to me is very fascinating. And that's something that I want to set the stage for moving forward, because the goal obviously is to have you play more of a role on this platform. And I think getting
Yep.
people a solid understanding of the development process is something that's very tedious. And it takes
Yep.
somebody with a high level of understanding of a lot of things, of engineering, of riding, of dynamics, of kinematics, of all these different things. And so, it's one thing for me to say, oh, you have that, but maybe just talk for a few minutes on what that means to you. Like, how would you describe to somebody what your background allows you to maybe vet in a bike, and how you go about doing it? And what I mean by that is, I like how your mindset isn't something's wrong with the bike. It's, what do I need to do to put myself in a position for the bike's attributes to shine through?
Gotcha.
So talk about that for a few minutes, because that's going to kind of, I think, set the stage, like I said, for what I want to accomplish with you on here.
Yeah. So I've had the luxury to work at a very high level with suspension. So right out of high school, I worked for a company called Works Performance, and at the end of my tenure at that company, I was actually building shocks from, if somebody fabricated a race car, we would get the suspension geometry breakouts from them, and we had algorithm that we would use to come up with the intervalving in the shocks. And so I would literally drill the valve holes in the pistons. I would build the shocks from scratch, and then we would take them out and test them with the teams. Because I was an aspiring motocross racer, motorcycle teams are who I worked with, both road racing and off-road. And so learning that stuff from that side really assisted me when it came time to dial in my own setups when I became a pro rider. And one thing I discovered when I was on the side working with people, most high level riders really don't understand how it works, and the misbehavior that they sense in suspension, they typically will miscalculate what those symptoms are and ask you to make a change that's counter to what would benefit them. And so on many occasions, guy'd come off the track and he'd say, the thing's doing this and it's doing that. I need you to make this adjustment. And I would go and make the opposite adjustment because I had seen what the motorcycle was doing. And he'd go out and he'd ride it and come back reassured that he gave me great instructions with no idea that I'd done the opposite. And so it was a great learning experience for me for my own riding, because it's easy to fall prey to that same instinct. You think, man, my bike's bucking me. I must need to slow the rebound down. And 9 times out of 10, you've got too much rebound damping in. And so the bike hits a bump and doesn't have time to recover for the next bump, and down and down and down it goes until it has no give left and it starts deflecting, and you get bucked. And it's not because it's too fast, it's because it's too slow.
And think, or talk about that in terms of wheel size. For example, Dave he wrote 27.5-inch wheels. I think he's probably throwing it out there to get an opinion, and when you are riding a bike and you go from 27.5 to 29, is it, just a wheel size? That's it. No big deal.
Yeah. So I'm evidence to the contrary, because last year, when you and I rode the Mach 5.5 in BME, after the second round, I came home and I jumped from the 27.5 Mach 5.5 onto my Switchblade, And I always tell myself, take 3 rides before you start making any moves and let your mind adapt to the adjustment. And about 15 minutes into my ride, I made a move. I made a calculation, call it a math equation, and I inserted the wrong X. I inserted the X for 27.5 wheels instead of the X for 29 wheels, and the result was a horrifying crash where I broke my neck, my back, my collarbone, and my arm. And needless to say, that slowed me down and set me back for the most of 2019.
And we're going to talk about that. So one thing that a lot of people have asked about is, how do you recover from injuries? And we're going to do
that's something that I'm eager. That's something that I'm eager to discuss at great length with you and with your viewers, because they may not know, in 2018, before Rich even lived in Bentonville, I flew to Dallas where he lived, and we drove to Bentonville to work with the Gravitas Enduro team up there. And at the end of a fantastic day, I had a huge crash, flipped off the bike into a tree, knocked the F out, sleeping, sawing logs in the woods, and completely destroyed myself. Broken scapula, fractured vertebrae in the back.
All we said was one thing, Rob: don't ruin the weekend.
Yeah, I totally ruined the weekend. Yeah, totally ruined the weekend.
Destroyed the weekend. It was so fun.
The point is, that was a devastating set of injuries. All of 2018 was spent getting shoulder reconstruction surgery, one after the other. Then we threw in a wrist surgery from old motocross issues. It was a tough road to come back from that, but I came back. I felt strong, and 2019 started very good. And then, July 2019, another just colossal crash.
Go down.
So very, very mentally challenging. Those are the types of things that really set you back on your heels. And riding the bike at the level we ride it, fear is not your friend. Apprehension is hugely dangerous. And those are the things that will. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are fearing what could happen, and that causes it to happen. And so getting over that hump, the mental hump, to have the confidence to let go, is very, very difficult. But I've done it 2 times, and so I think I'm well practiced at it.
You've done it 2 times on mountain bikes.
2 times on mountain bikes. I had to do it a few times on motorcycles too.
Yeah, you had to do it a solid 3 or 4.
Yeah.
During your motocross career. So a lot of violence.
You can't underestimate the importance of the mental aspect of it. You and I argue all the time. It's to be strong, it's to be fit, but you can make or break yourself so much in your head. You can't underestimate that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's one of those things that, as I said, we're going to do a full episode on that, because I think that's something that I have a lot of bullet points that I want to talk through, and certain things I want to get from you, because we've talked a lot about it. And I think it's really insightful. And I think there's a lot of things that people need to hear. It's just some of them are not what people think. Some of the people are spot on, but they just don't know it's right. They think, well, maybe I shouldn't think this way. And sometimes, that's how you should think. And it's a very interesting process. And I think, the mental side of it is important, and trying to be positive. But at the same time, one thing you and I have talked about is that fear mechanism. It needs to be there. It's supposed to be there. It's natural. And you have to be smart. It can't be lingering the whole time, but when it comes up and talks to you, and it's pretty confident that you shouldn't be doing something or shouldn't be riding how you're riding, maybe it's smart to listen. So that, for me,
that's the key. Is there's some days when something just doesn't feel right, and I change my plan, because there's been too many times where I felt that feeling and didn't check myself, and I wrecked myself.
Funny how that happens. So let's just talk quickly about bikes. Obviously, as a pivot guy, you got a few of them in the garage right now. Give us the breakdown on what's your fleet.
Currently, I've got the V2 Switchblade. Mine is upgraded with the 2021 Float X2. If anybody's ridden a pivot that was upgradable to the X2, like the 5.5 or the previous Switchblade, if you got it with the stock shock and then you upgrade it to the X2, you are aware of the difference that makes in the performance of the bike. And on the V2 Switchblade, it's no different. It's hugely effective. Makes the bike feel like it has a lot more depth. Not that it was lacking. It worked really good with the DPX2, but the X2 just makes it feel that much more confident and capable. I've also got the new slate blue Firebird 29 that has also the 2021 Float X2 and the Fox 38 on the front. And that's been a really solid bike. I initially got a large. You and I rode EM last year, and although I knew I was comfortable with that setup, downsizing the cockpit so you can oversize the stem, get some weight over the front wheel on that slack bike, improves the handling tremendously. And I should have stuck with that setup, but because the Switchblade was such a big bike, I thought, maybe the back and forth between the two, both in large, would be better. But that was a terrible mistake. And the large Firebird was really just way too big.
It was a terrible mistake.
Yeah, it was a terrible mistake.
So very quickly, because that's another topic for anybody watching, is sizing and bike setup. So we have a whole episode that we're going to do on that because I think it's very important.
And there's so many, like we always talk about in the clinics, nuance. There's so many aspects. What is the right size? And it's not just, when you sit on the bike in the store, the way they spec it, does it feel right? Because everything is adjustable. And sometimes, depending on the way that bike's configured, you will benefit from making a small bike roomier. And sometimes you'll benefit from making a big bike feel smaller. It depends what it is you want to do.
Yeah. And I think some of it depends on your riding style, where you're riding, how you're riding. If you're ripping down some gnarly trails very fast, I think having a longer bike, being a little more stable, it's going to be an advantage.
Absolutely.
But
as you know, in the trails that I ride, wheelbase is a liability. So you get a bike that's an extra 4, 5, 6 inches of wheelbase, and you're ripping derailleurs off.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I don't know if I asked you this. Did you do the angled cup on your Firebird like we did? Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't go any deeper. Okay. So Switchblade Firebird. I mean, you're in Phoenix, South Mountain. Well, wait a minute. No, there's no way you have any other bikes. It just isn't possible. No.
Yes.
What do you have?
Yes. I have a Mach 4 SL.
What's
cross-country missile?
How dare you? Go put spandex on right now and leave.
Well, little do you know that. So you may remember when Pivot boxes up our bikes.
Yeah.
Because I know all the guys back in the warehouse, it's always, they have fun with it. And, and there's hijinks that ensue. Well, rest assured, there were some spandex kits in the box with that bike when I got it.
Have you worn them?
I've yet to, but this weekend, 6-hour endurance race, and I will be riding that bike, a 2-man team with the Red Mountain Goat, thinking I might have to break out the spandex.
So, okay. Did you sign up as a chicken? Because
I did not sign up.
People are gonna, when they see you with the spandex, they're gonna go, dude, that guy looks like he's riding a chicken.
Yeah, I think they're having a chicken race. So
that's funny.
Unlimited chicken racing.
Okay, so you've spent time on another bike too in that mix, right? One you were a fan of. A little bit bigger than the Mach 4.
Oh, you're talking about the trail.
Of course.
Yeah, the Trail 429, the Trail 429, and I'll say for the record, Trail 429 Enduro is currently my favorite bike. It's funny because when I got it, I didn't have the suspension set up right. I like my stuff soft, but when you're dealing with only 120 millimeter, if you have too much sag and the bike is sitting in the bottom portion of the travel, it's not going to function properly. And so I went up to Sona, I spent with Alex, as you know, the guys he's a Fox test rider. He's a genius with that stuff. And he worked with me on my setup. And after I spent, half a day with him, that bike just completely blew my mind. And the more you try to beat it, the more it comes back and just says, nah, bro, not happening.
So it's so funny to hear you say that, because what you said earlier was you're very intimate with suspension. You have a very storied background in suspension, yet you needed some outside help with that.
Well, it's easy, and you know this. I was the guy who would talk trash about that bike. It's too small. There's no downside to having too much bike, extra.
Another episode, underbiked, overbiked. It's coming.
Exactly. So I was always the guy who was, you want to be overbiked, and I never. Because of that, I mean, just anybody else, there's things that we haven't done and you don't know until you know. And I underestimated that bike. I set it up wrong, and it's so, because this is relative to so much that's happening in the world. I had a prejudice, and I did everything to affirm the prejudice. To reinforce my belief, which was wrong. And it took him on the outside saying, man, you got that all wrong.
Yeah.
To get me to open my eyes and give it a full consideration. Even when you were out here and you rode it, and following you, it looked amazing and it looked fun. But when I rode it, it didn't feel that way to me. It's just because I didn't know how to ride it.
Yeah.
And once I did, and that thing blew my mind.
Well, it's funny that little, I don't know, 2 minutes right there was a lot there. Like, I wonder how much people picked up on that. Like what you just said, as clearly a very accomplished rider, somebody who's been in the game for a long time, somebody who has a wealth of knowledge, basically said, I was wrong. Like I was wrong about a bike.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another important thing is to be that humble and be that open to saying, what can I do? And that's the thing to me. I appreciate that. And that's,
you're the best, you can't get better.
And I don't know.
Best, you can't get better.
I know. And I don't think it's about people thinking they're the best. There's a lot of sentiment about bikes are bad. And I don't think there are many bikes that we're talking about that are bad. The bike isn't bad. Does it resonate with you?
What happens is you may be a bad match. It's like putting two tires together that aren't meant to work together.
Yeah.
They're both great, but in a pair, they don't work well. Yeah. It's not either tire's fault. It's just they're not meant to be paired that way.
Yeah. And again, I think there's a lot to it. And I wish I could encapsulate your experience with the Trail 429 and convey that to people, because I was along for that ride with you, and to see you consistently look to find a way to get a better pairing with that bike. I dig that. Like, I love that. That's just,
well, that's the other thing is I made the investment. I mean, I know a lot of people who they'll spend $6,000 on a bike and they'll ride it 3 times. I mean, think back to, you remember when the Firebird 29 came out?
I'm
a pivot guy. So this is not something that should be said, but I don't know if you remember the quote. So I picked up both our bikes at Pivot. I built mine, I rode it.
Yeah.
And you were frothing to get yours, but it was here. And I rode the bike and you called me and you said, how was it? You remember what I said?
Yeah.
What did I say?
Dude, I don't know about this thing.
It was like working at a job and I want to quit. And it was because I was riding it wrong. The setup was, the bike was different. It was long.
Okay. So, oh dude, we're getting deep and we're not supposed to, I promised. So it never fails. It never fails. There's a video too. So for anybody watching, it's old, but if you go back, there's a rough video where I ran POV, and it's when I first rode the Firebird 29. And there's a lot of gems from Rob in there. And I think
we were both running cameras and just
Yeah.
talking through the ride.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good stuff, and we're going to talk about that. And we'll get into that. This is I want to bring this one up right here. Being slightly underbiked is always more fun than being overbiked. Obviously, if you aren't a super skilled rider, then overbiking to compensate for less skill can help newer riders find comfort. Again, I think it's relative.
Yeah, so one thing I'll say, as rugged as the trails are here, the way that the Trail 429 works the best is you've got to be able to pick your way down. If you're running into everything, it's the wrong bike.
Yep.
You know, if you're finding landing spots and jumping and pulling double ups everywhere and missing most of the rough stuff, you don't need that bike to take the hits if you're not taking the hits. But if you can't ride that way, you're going to struggle with it.
And I don't think most people.
It's the wrong tool for the job then.
Yeah, and I don't think most people can ride that way. What do you say? If you're a hammer, you're always looking for a nail. Haven't you said something like that?
If all you got's a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
There you go. 6.5 in one, a dozen in the other. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's the underbiked overbike thing. It'll never end. I mean, that's one that we'll talk about for a long time. But I think there's a lot of things to think about with that, because where are you riding? What's your background? You know, I rode the hell out of that Evo. I took that Evo to Breckenridge, set up with 2-3 cross-country tires. I didn't do anything to it because I thought, I want to ride it stock. And I wasn't really looking forward to it. And the harder I rode it, the better it worked. And it's crazy because it goes against what most people would think when that happens. People wouldn't think, oh, dude, take a 120 millimeter bike and just ride it harder because it'll work better. And I just think,
well, and it's amazing what you might discover when you enter into a situation that's not, your ideal plan, and you've got to find ways to get creative and kind of think outside the box and do things you wouldn't otherwise do, and sometimes positive results come from that.
Definitely. And I think in this case, it's very interesting because, as we've talked about, my mentality with these bike reviews is to express that, is to put myself in those situations so people can see that and they can see. So there's never a question. Like the Evo video is a prime example, dude. I ripped that thing as hard as I possibly could, just waiting to explode a tire or a wheel or potentially break that bike. And it didn't happen. And I don't expect everybody to ride it like that. But now people can watch that video and go, okay, wait a minute. That bike can be ridden.
Yeah, it's nice for them to see that you've put it through the test. You've put it through the test and they don't have to risk breaking their bike.
Well, yeah. Or if it's somebody who's like on the cross country end of things, but I want to get a little enduro, bro, they can see, okay, wait a minute, that'll work. Like, it's not a huge departure. And it's funny because so many people are asking right now, dude, how does it compare to the Spur? It doesn't compare directly to the Spur. If you're somebody who's looking to do big cross country rides, you're going to buy the Evo. If you're somebody that's looking for like an all around trail bike that you can pedal a lot, you're going to buy a Spur. Like, there's some crossover, but
that goes back to 429 Trail, same way. By the numbers, it would seem like an XC-ish bike. But if you want to ride XC, get a Mach 4. It's the Trail is an amazing bike, but it punches above its weight. It doesn't punch well below.
No, definitely. That's I agree. There's a lot. What about a mullet setup? Have you ridden any mullet stuff?
I looked at it about as much as you did, and it just didn't make sense to me. I mean, I understand the dynamics of it, and you and I talked about it. Having the rolling resistance, like the rollover effect on the front, and a bigger contact patch for turning grip makes sense on the front. And the acceleration of a 27.5, especially on a trail like Geronimo, where it's almost dead stop switchbacks, you can accelerate much quicker. so I can see the reasons why that setup would work, but unless you design the bike around that setup,
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're asking a bike to do something other than it was designed for. And so either you're going to take a 29er and put a little wheel on it and have pedal striking issues, and maybe, since bikes are so slack now, you drop the back and make a bike a little more slack than you wanted it, or you try to do what we did, where you put a 29 fork on the front of a bike like the Mach 5.5, and the bike is so good the way that it's built, all you've done is ruin it, really, I think. I mean, I didn't give it the time, like we talked about, to really flush it out and maybe make something out of it, but
yeah, I think that's important. Like Garrett just said on here, changing the geometry. Like when I did mine, I went 160, 160. Like if I would have put a 150 fork or a 140 29er fork on it, it might have been a little bit better, but it changed the geometry of the bike a lot, so much so that it was really difficult. So,
well, when you talk about somebody like Martin Mays, who, when I think of the mullet bike, I think of him because he had so much success on it. First of all, he's Martin Mays.
Yep.
The second thing is he rides for GT, and GT, I think, is a more conservative company. They're not on the cusp of aggressive geometry. So he may have felt that the best way he could make a not super slack bike slack was put a smaller wheel on the back of it. So if that was his objective and that was the best way to get there, he didn't do it because he necessarily was looking for a 27.5 wheel on the back, but he might have been looking, and I don't know, I haven't spoken with him about it, or his mechanic, but he might have been looking for the side effect, and it suited him well. You can see in the results, it was amazing for him. If you don't know all that information around the back, don't assume just throwing a 29 wheel on the front of your 27.5 is going to make you him. That's likely not the case, and you need to understand why he did it and what the hope was, what the target was, and where do they land. I'd love to get their feedback on it because it's a tremendous success.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Bo said on here, talking about bike sizing, he said he's got a large transition Sentinel and he had a medium that didn't feel right. Bo, how tall are you? Tell us how tall you are, because I'm 5'10". Dude, I pedaled around a large Sentinel last night. Wow. That thing feels rad, dude. It feels like such a cool bike. It's hard to believe that it's as much travel.
When you got the spur, I obviously, I follow Transition on Instagram. When they drop that bike, I look close at it. I have friends who ride for Transition, and when that bike came out, I went to their website and looked at it. I looked at the new Sentinel. They're slick looking bikes. I gotta say, I gotta give it to them.
Yeah, the Spur.
They're doing good things.
The Spur might be the best looking bike that I've ever seen. It just works. Like the lines are really cool.
Yeah, that clean line from the head tube straight back to the axle. I like the look of it.
Yeah, it's, and just everything about it, the fit and finish is really good. It's a really fun bike. So he also said he's got the Trans X 29 2021. So I'm wondering if that's the aluminum one or the Colin. I rode. Yeah, Colin said Travis just picked up a new Sentinel from the hub here in Bentonville. I was there last night. Yeah, so the bummer for Travis is his full custom bike got stolen when we were in Denver. Yeah, dude, jacked it right off his truck. Upside is he's on a new Sentinel now because the insurance paid him out. So definitely good for him.
So nice to get paid like that. Yeah. The heartbreak goes away quick when you throw your leg over a new bike.
Yeah. It's a good looking bike. There's so many right now. Like it's so hard. I got the Enduro, and actually did you see the Enduro video? I posted it on Instagram. So I did it on Insta.
Yeah, I saw you roll Pepto-Bismol.
Don't you talk about Sarah Connor that way. She will womp your ass.
No.
Yeah. Pepto-Bismol. It looks better in person. So, he had a Nolly Warden is what got stolen, and it was all custom colors. But yeah, the Sentinel does look dope. definitely. A lot of good bikes. I'm going to go ride the Pepto-Bismol tomorrow. Going to go out to Eureka and get some shuttles in the morning with the dudes from Dirt Therapy Project. So really cool group of veterans that are coming up. So yeah, I'm excited to go roll with those guys. And I also have something really cool. Junk Brands might have hooked them up with some really cool headbands. So none of the 51 people watching can tell them that, but yeah, that'll be cool. So
this is a situation where you're happy to receive junk.
yeah. To give my junk to people. I love to give my junk away. So let's wrap this up, dude. Your audio is cracking a little bit. We're going to have to fix that, but I think everything else went halfway.
This was a good test. Good test run.
Yeah. It was a good test. John's got one last question. Any racing soon for either of you?
Saturday.
Oh, that's right. You're doing
a 6-hour endurance, baby.
A 6-hour endurance race. So if you don't follow Rob on Instagram at the Rob Drew, follow along because you're going to see an incredible evolution.
Yeah, I'll try to keep the stories flowing.
Of somebody who has no clue what they're in for, being excited. And then as the hours go on, you'll see pain. And yeah, I'm excited.
Well, fortunately, it's an 11-mile loop, and so we're just going to alternate laps. So I think it's going to go by pretty fast. A lot of people we know are going to be there. So I'm just looking for a fun, good time.
There you go.
Well, I'm not that fast on the pedals in that setting. So I'll be leaning on Alex.
You know what we say, dude, when you're doing cross country, 2/10, 3/10, and half the turns, that adds up to like an hour. So
yeah,
that's
so I'm expecting that on the downside, I'll pick up some time.
Nice. Well, make sure and wear your knee pads. Stay hydrated. Lots of scratch labs. And
lots of scratch labs. Never without scratch labs. You see what happens to me when I don't have scratch labs.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, we're gonna start doing this on a little bit more of a regular basis. So we're gonna work out timing and figure out what's best. We might even have to try to do 2 a week because there's a lot of people abroad that want to join, and I don't know
subject to talk about.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, you can talk about riding in some of those other countries. So a lot to talk about. Very exciting. Anybody watching in the comments, drop what you'd like to see for topics or shoot us messages on Instagram. I'm at the Rich Drew. Rob is at the Rob Drew. And so we have a long list.
Yep. I have a YouTube channel. Rob Drew is my YouTube channel. I don't have much on there, but I recently posted the trail we were talking about earlier, Old Man. I posted a KOM run with the new GoPro Hero 9. So the picture's pretty good. It's a good opportunity to get a peek at that trail. Obviously, it makes the trail look much more tame than it really is. But it was a good full pull with got clean through everything. So I think it was good to watch. It's fun.
Nice. Yeah, I watched it. It brings back traumatic memories. It doesn't know justice. Like you watch it and you'd be like, I mean, it's all right. It's not that bad, but painful.
You got to listen. When you're watching it, listen to the sound.
Listen to
the debris sliding down the mountain behind me.
And when I'm there in a little over or a little less than a month, we'll get some video of that. Like we'll actually walk around it. Maybe we'll bring a yardstick out or something to really show how big some of that stuff is. But
an inclinometer.
We'll try to get as much as we can. So, all right, dude. It's 9:30 here. You're 7:30 there. You got plenty of time, dude. I got to go to sleep. So
I got to go prep my bike.
Go prep your bike for racing.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Was it fun? You want to do more of these?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I got a lot more to. You're gonna have to shut me up. Is the only thing.
Well, no, it's okay.
I got too much to say.
No, we'll get on point and we'll get this dialed in. We'll get the audio right, the picture right, and then we'll just start talking on whatever topic we have. So I think we can make them like half, 3/4 the topic, and then do a little Q&A to finish it. So, all right.
Yeah, well, I'm going to pull the trigger on a Mac, and
nice.
Then I'll be able to use the Hero 9 as the webcam.
There you go. I like that. So, all right, dude.
Exciting.
Peace out. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good luck.
Peace out,
Later.
number.